in the heart of a harsh land, where mountains pierce the clouds like blades and ancient forests whisper forgotten legends, a man was born whose name would echo through time, shrouded in terror. Vlad III of Wallachia, known to history as Vlad Țepeș, the Impaler. But before blood soaked his banners, before heads rolled across the castles of the Carpathians, he was simply the son of a man marked by a powerful symbol, the dragon. His father, Vlad II Dracula, belonged to the Order of the Dragon, a Christian military elite formed to defend Europe from Ottoman invasions. The name Dracula derived from the Latin Draco, meaning dragon, but in Romanian folklore, the word also ominously resembled devil. Thus, Dracula, son of the dragon, also became son of the devil. And the fate of young Vlad already seemed carved into that name. He was likely born in 1431 in the Saxon town of Sighișoara in Transylvania, and grew up in a time when power wasn't inherited. It was seized with the sword and with cruelty. Wallachia, a land torn between the Kingdom of Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, was a constant battlefield, fractured by noble families fighting one another, where alliances were fleeting and betrayal commonplace. In this political swamp, Vlad learned early that trust was weakness. In 1442, at just 11 years old, he was taken hostage by Ottoman Sultan Murad II, along with his younger brother Radu, as a guarantee of their father's loyalty. But that humiliation became his first crucible. In the eastern palaces, caught between prison and forced education, he learned languages, warfare, and the workings of empire. But most of all, he nursed a grudge, a deep hatred for those who had imprisoned him, betrayed him, for his brother Radu, who embraced Ottoman customs while Vlad plotted revenge. While Radu adapted to court life and won favor with the future Sultan Mehmed II, Vlad forged a silent oath of iron. He would return to Wallachia, claim what was his, and take it in blood. Every offense would be repaid 100-fold. Every betrayal carved into the flesh of his enemies. When he returned, the boy had become a monster, no longer the hostage, now the contender to the throne. Wallachia, devastated and leaderless, was ready to receive him, but not with celebration. His path to power would be lined with thorns, conspiracies, and death. Vlad first seized the throne of Wallachia in 1448, ironically thanks to Ottoman support. But his reign lasted only a few months. Betrayed and overthrown, he fled. That was not the end, only the beginning. He began to scheme, to forge new alliances, to sharpen his vision. He understood that ruling such a chaotic land required more than royal blood. It required terror. And from that moment on, Wallachia would come to know the true meaning of fear. In 1456, Vlad returned to Wallachia, but not as an exiled prince. He returned as judge, executioner, and sovereign. This time, there would be no compromises. His rule would be built on the silence of obedience and the roar of terror. To crush a corrupt and treacherous nobility, he decided that every unnecessary word, every doubt, every whispered dissent would be impaled. Literally. Wallachia was a rotting land. The boyars, the local nobles, had turned the country into a private feud where princes rose and fell depending on backroom plots. No ruler lasted. No one truly governed. But Vlad was different. He didn't seek approval. He demanded discipline. His first act as voivode was an unambiguous message. He summoned the boyars for a grand Easter celebration, offering them food, wine, and an illusion of reconciliation. When the feast reached its peak, he ordered the older ones impaled on the spot. The younger nobles were forced to march for days into the Carpathians, where they built, by hand, the fortress of Poinari. Half of them never returned. The message was clear. Those who betrayed in the past would never have the chance to do so again. And those who eyed the throne with hunger would now stare at it in fear. But Vlad didn't stop with the nobility. He wanted a new Wallachia, clean, orderly, where theft, lies, and corruption were uprooted like weeds. Beggars were burned alive in a banquet hall in what he called a purge of idleness. Thieves were impaled for even minor crimes. Adulterous women were mutilated or eliminated. No one stood above the law. No one escaped his gaze. And yet, amid the horror, something unexpected emerged. Order. The legendary golden goblet, left in plain sight by the public fountain of Targoviste, untouched by any thief, was not just a moral tale. It was the symbol of a new social contract enforced by terror. In an age where insecurity was the rule, Vlad created an oasis of absolute discipline. His favorite tool, impalement, was not just a form of torture. It was a language. Each stake was a sentence, a warning, a visual form of control. Victims were pierced with such precision that their agony would last for days. Roads became lined with corpses. Borders became psychological walls. Enemies stopped advancing. The people did not rebel. Across Europe, tales of Vlad began to circulate. German merchants, punished for dishonesty and usury, returned home with grotesque stories. Cities filled with impaled bodies, forests of corpses, heads displayed on pikes. He was depicted as a monster, a bloodthirsty beast. But behind the exaggerated propaganda was a man who wielded fear as a political weapon. He was cruel, yes, but lucid, calculating, determined never to be crushed by anyone. Even kings began to take notice. The rulers of Hungary, Poland, even the Pope, watched the Impaler with a mix of horror and respect. Because after all, Vlad was doing what no one else could, keeping the Ottoman Empire at bay through fear alone. But peace, however twisted, was never meant to last. In 1462, the ultimate showdown began. The Ottoman Empire, then the mightiest military force in the world, decided that Vlad Țepeș had become a threat that had to be erased. This was no longer about unpaid tribute or diplomatic slights. Vlad had done the unthinkable. He had invaded Ottoman lands, destroyed encampments, massacred entire garrisons, and burned villages all the way to the Danube. It was a clear message to Sultan Mehmed II. Wallachia does not kneel. The response was immediate. The very Sultan who had conquered Constantinople just years before assembled a massive army, estimated at over 100,000 men. Artillery, cavalry, elite troops. His goal, wipe Vlad from the face of the earth. But Vlad knew his land. He knew the human psyche. He would not meet the Ottomans in open battle. He would fight with the one weapon mightier than any sword: fear. He ordered every village in the Ottomans' path to be destroyed. Fields were burned, wells were poisoned, towns were emptied and set ablaze. The scorched earth strategy turned Wallachia into a haunted wasteland. No supplies, no rest, only hunger, thirst, and shadows. The population vanished into the forests. The enemy marched into a kingdom of ghosts. Then came Vlad's boldest move. On the night of June 16th, he and a small group of men, disguised as Ottoman soldiers, infiltrated the Sultan's camp. Their target, Sultan Mehmed II himself. The assassination attempt failed by inches, but the chaos it unleashed was catastrophic. The Ottomans awoke in panic. They couldn't tell ally from enemy. They turned on each other in the dark. Vlad escaped, leaving behind fire, blood, and confusion. The Sultan pressed on to Târgoviște, but there he found a nightmare. Before him stretched a vast forest of stakes, thousands of bodies impaled upright, some with their eyes still open, men, women, children, even horses. Chroniclers of the time speak of over 20,000 victims. The stench was unbearable. Crows feasted undisturbed. The entire scene felt cursed. Mehmed, hardened by countless wars, was shaken. "You cannot fight a man who does this to his enemies," he reportedly whispered. A few days later, the Ottoman army withdrew. Vlad had won, without a formal battle, with nothing but the power of terror. But victory came bitter. Vlad's allies had turned their backs. German propaganda continued to portray him as a demon, and his own brother Radu, now loyal to the Ottomans, was placed on the throne with Turkish support. Vlad was forced to flee. He sought refuge in Transylvania, but was betrayed and imprisoned by Hungarian King Matthias Corvinus. Incredibly, he was shown forged letters accusing him of allying with the enemy, and so he was locked away. 12 long years. The Impaler, the monster, the Avenger, vanished behind foreign walls as the world began to forget his name. But blood doesn't wash away easily, and the name Vlad Dracula, even in chains, never stopped haunting the Danube. 12 years. 12 years of captivity, far from his throne, his land, his power. For anyone else, it would have been the end. But for Vlad Țepeș, it was only a pause. During his imprisonment in Buda at the court of Matthias Corvinus, Vlad transformed. He earned the king's trust, who had once believed the false documents. But then he realized Vlad was the only man capable of holding back the Turks, without an army. Some say Vlad studied, others say he prayed. Most believe he planned vengeance. When he was finally released in 1475, his goal was clear: return to the throne of Wallachia. Not to rule, but to settle accounts, to reclaim what history owed him. In 1476, with support from Corvinus and Moldavian Prince Stefan cel Mare, Vlad crossed the mountains once more. Wallachia was in chaos. Radu was dead. The Ottomans were puppeteering local princes. The people were exhausted, but not forgetful. His return was met with fear and hope, like welcoming a storm, dreaded yet inevitable. He took power for the third and final time. But everything had changed. The country he once ruled with iron discipline was now more fragile, fractured, untamable. The boyars had rebuilt their networks. The Ottomans pressed at the borders. Even his own troops were stitched together from temporary alliances. Still, the terror returned. Vlad resumed his old methods. Traitors were executed, collaborators impaled, dissent crushed. His justice was swift, his vengeance absolute. But this time, something had shifted. The echo of his crimes had grown too loud. Enemies no longer hid. They waited for him. The end came quickly. One of the most credible accounts claims Vlad fell in an ambush near Bucharest. Some say the Turks killed him. Others say it was his own men, corrupted or afraid. A darker legend says he was slain by mistake, by one of his allies who failed to recognize him in the confusion. Either way, the result was the same. Vlad was killed. His body decapitated. His head sent to Constantinople as a trophy for the Sultan. His final reign lasted only 2 months. The shortest, the most tragic, yet perhaps the most symbolic. Because in that brief window, Vlad proved his will had never broken. His flame had never dimmed. He died as he lived, fighting, without forgiveness, without compromise. His head was displayed on the walls of the Ottoman capital, between the silence of victors and the shudder of subjects. But his body, according to legend, was buried at the monastery of Snagov, on an island shrouded in mist and silence. Centuries later, when his tomb was opened, it was empty. Because perhaps Vlad Țepeș never truly died. Perhaps he still lingers in the shadows of the Carpathians, or maybe he simply survived in myth. And the final word on him has yet to be written. Dracula, the vampire, the son of the dragon. But the truth is far more chilling than legend. Vlad needed no fangs to inspire fear. He had stakes and used them with surgical precision. He did not act from the shadows. He ruled in full daylight, before all eyes. That was his strength. He offered no paradise, asked for no faith. He demanded discipline, and imposed it through terror, and under his rule, terror worked. The people feared him, yes, but they obeyed. And at that time, obedience meant survival. Maybe Vlad is truly dead, or maybe he lives on, every time power chooses fear as its voice. Every time cruelty is disguised as justice. Every time we ask ourselves, where does the man end and the monster begin? If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.